Hello, and welcome to Noble TV. We are the Chicago chapter of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. My name is Eugene Williams, and my co-host is John Franklin.
Hi, Gene. Good to see you.
Good to have you here. We want to start by thanking you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us today. We are very excited today because we're going to be talking about how Noble TV and the Noble organization is going to expand its footprint in terms of closing the gap between the trust factor between the community and police officers and law enforcement in general. And we want to remind you that you're watching CAN-TV 21 here, and you can watch us here, but you can also see us online at CAN-TV, CANTV.org/hotline. So please join us. During the course of this program, we'll put up information that shares all of our contact information, so we invite you to follow us on our website, on Facebook, and on Twitter. But I think you're going to be pleased with what we're going to be talking about today, and that is that we're going to be expanding that footprint. And just remember that this is a live, interactive show, and a little bit later in the program, we'll take some calls, and that number at the bottom of your screen at 312-738-1060 is how you can call in. But John, let's talk about what it is that we're doing that's exciting.
We are pleased to be a part of the CAN-TV family.
Indeed.
Starting in October 6th, so mark your calendars. We will have a live weekly broadcast every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. That's every Thursday evening at 7:30 p.m. So please tune in and see us then.
Yes, see, what Noble has done is Noble has developed numerous partnerships and relationships all across the country. And what we want to do with Noble TV and with the Noble organization is to leverage those relationships and those partnerships to bring our viewers a wide range, a variety of topics and discussions on matters that impact the community and impact law enforcement. And part of what we want to do is we'll be discussing those topics here, but what we want to do is also bring in the top executives, prosecutors, elected officials, community-based organizations, and so forth, so that they can weigh in and so that our viewers can also weigh in as well. And so a lot of the topics that we're going to be throwing out today, and we're talking more about the topics that we're going to be covering as we go forward, as opposed to trying to explain that, because we want to bring in the experts and let them explain it. But the topics that we're going to throw out today are not the only topics that we're going to be talking about. But John, just share some of the topics that we're going to be talking about. 2016
statistics of the Chicago area shootings,
yes.
Homicides, violence, which continues to plague the Chicago area and the suburbs. We have recent reports about people, gang members from Chicago, going out to suburbs, stealing high-end cars and bringing them back into Chicago to commit further crimes.
Yeah, well, I just want to piggyback on that right quick, John, if I could. I think something that really impacts that is how are those crimes being solved?
True. Detective clearance rates.
Right. We want to bring on the top people in law enforcement across the metropolitan area to talk about what the clearance rate is, how are those crimes being solved.
Right. Strategies being implemented to reduce violence in the remainder of 2016 and
yes.
next year. 2017 is right around the corner. We've had recent gang raids on the west side, which resulted in numerous arrests, recovery of firearms, and arrests of repeat violent offenders. Those seem to be doing a pretty good job for right now. Are we going to expand those? Are those going to hit other areas of the city?
Yeah, that's great, John. I mean, I'm telling you, there are so many topics that we have already on our agenda. I think you're going to be very pleased as viewers to see what it is that Noble is going to be discussing. We want to talk about the future of community policing. Where is it at right now?
Most definitely.
What is going on with CAPS? Have you heard a lot about CAPS? If you haven't, then we're going to bring on the people who are responsible for implementing CAPS, and then let you, our viewers, also ask some questions as well.
And here's a topic that's of concern to every Chicagoan: enhanced penalties for repeat gun offenders, automatic prison time. What are our federal law enforcement partners doing to help us in assisting the CPD with aggressive prosecutions of some of our most violent repeat offenders?
Yes, I know, and we know that we've heard Superintendent Eddie Johnson talk about that time. Every time he steps in front of the microphone, he's talking about that. So we'll have all of the players, the key players, come in and be a part of our show so that they can answer those questions and so that you, our viewers, can ask questions of them as well.
It seems to be a persistent problem, the revolving door of locking them up, letting them out, locking them up, letting them out. And how about the need for more cops?
Right. Well, that's going to be a big issue as well. It's been in the news a good bit lately. What's the right number?
Yeah.
How many should we hire? Where's the funding coming from it? You know, we've also talked about we've heard from the unions that they think that the officers are being overworked. They're putting in too many hours, and they're saying that's because there are not enough. So we're going to talk to all of the decision makers in that process, and we're going to get an answer, hopefully, as to what is that right number. Do we need to hire more, and if so, what the
Well, Gene,
correct
I think
number
we
is.
can all agree that we definitely need more cops. I think everybody in Chicago knows that we're understaffed and we need more.
Okay, well, we'll see what the superintendent and the other officials have to say about it. But, other topics that we're going to discuss, and I want to make it clear, Noble TV will not be ducking any of these issues. I assure you there's no issues that we're not going to take on. We certainly are going to be talking about how police-involved shootings are investigated and how excessive force complaints are investigated as well. That's a big concern.
huge concern for everybody.
Right.
The status of Department of Justice patterns and practices reviews. What are they finding out? What are they recommending? How are we going to implement those changes?
Right. Now, you know that the Department of Justice has been here for several months. They're doing the patterns and practice review, and I expect sometime in the near future they're going to come out with what they their decision as to whether we're going to move from a patterns and practice review into a full-blown consent decree. And I think the odds are pretty good that we're going to be under a consent decree. You know, but we'll wait, and hopefully we'll get some of those officials from the federal level as well as from the city to fill us in on and update us as to what the status of that is.
How about the proposed ordinance for COPA, the newly
Yes.
proposed COPA to replace IPRA?
Yes, I assure you there's not going to be a topic that is of concern to our viewers that we won't tackle. We want to make sure, so when we talk about civilian oversight, police accountability, is that going to look the same as IPRA? Is it going to be something different? Is IPRA just getting another label? We're going to talk to the people who are involved in that process, and a little bit later we're going to be talking about we're laying out all of the different topics that we're going to be discussing, but a little bit later on in the show, we're going to tell you all of the people that we've invited and all of the people who've already committed to being on our show, and those are the people who are going to be answering these questions. They're going to be the experts in these areas. They're going to be the people who implement these policies and procedures and programs, and we want to bring them before you and allow you an opportunity to have that discussion with them.
How about the alleged code of silence?
Oh, wow. That's a big one. We've heard that quite a bit. Is there a code of silence, John?
Well, according to what the mayor said in the media, there one exists. So if it does exist, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to resolve it?
Well, that's a topic we will be discussing, and we will, bring the people on the show who can tell us whether it exists or whether it doesn't exist, and if it does, to what extent. And so we'll be very, very happy to bring that kind of cutting-edge information from people that we've known for many, many years in our work, and we'll be able to invite those people. We know who they are. We can talk to them, and we've gotten really good feedback in terms of inviting them and extending invitations to them, and they've indicated that they want to be a part of Noble TV.
Now, speaking of cutting edge, how about the latest in police-related technology, law enforcement technologies?
Well, that is a really big thing, and we're going to cover that extensively. When you're talking about technology as it exists today, you're talking about body cams, you're talking about dash cam video. You're talking about shot spotter technology in terms of gun detection.
I think I just read in the papers we're going to be purchasing some spot shotters and placing them around strategic areas of the city.
Yes, I think it's been expanded. But rather than us getting involved in it, the nuts and bolts of it, what I really want to do is to bring on the person who's responsible for that
Sure.
in the Chicago Police Department and have them explain that. And that's what our intentions are. So I want to remind you that you are watching Noble TV here on CAN TV 21, and you can also check us out on the internet at cantv-org/hotline. John, I think
Gene, I believe we have a caller.
yeah, let's take this call, and then we'll get back into what.
Okay.
Caller, your question or comment?
Yes, gentlemen, great show. you know, you guys hit it right on the spot about having jobs. We need jobs. But if we can't get any, and I'm going to tell you right now that yesterday or the day before, the mayor had a big thing about the Chinese having a multi-million-dollar site. But not one African American, not one Hispanic construction company got a piece of that. Why didn't we? We should have the jobs so we could hire more greater people like you and the gentleman beside you, our own people. Why do we always have to go to the white lawyer? Because the white lawyer's got the money. And why does he have the money? Because the white people are working. So please, we got to get rid of somebody to get our fair share.
Thank you, caller.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. You know,
There was something on the news about a newly proposed village that's going to be built on the South Loop, on the South River.
Yeah,
It's a huge project.
yeah, it's a river river walk. But
Right.
to the caller's point, we're going to be talking about hiring and promotions and diversity. And, you know, we expect to bring people on who can answer those questions, you know, whether the money that is in TIP funds are being used to
Enrich the community to some
absolutely,
degree.
and if that's what's
To some
needed
degree,
to
yes.
hire more officers, and you know, I know we talk primarily about law enforcement issues and
Right.
how we can bridge that gap, but I know the caller is talking about another part of it, which goes to the heart of it as well, and that is how it is that we impact this overall violence, and part of that is
Lack of living wage jobs.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So
The
caller-
superintendent recently just talked about that. He said a lot of our problems on the street are not
Right.
police problems, they're societal problems.
So caller, thank you for that call, and I promise you we have every intention of asking all of those questions. John, let's take another call
Okay.
before we get back to
All right.
these topics. Caller, your question or comment?
Caller?
Yes,
Hello?
hi. I was wondering, with all that's going on these days, and I know most of the outcries or so is, you know, basically saying the law enforcement needs to do things to change things right now. But what can we as citizens do to assist in mending the relationship between police and the community?
Well, thank you for the
Yeah, thank you for the call.
Thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
You know, that's a part of what we at Noble are all about, to be perfectly honest with you. And, you know, this whole issue with violence and the problems that we're experiencing, not only in Chicago, but across the country, is not something that law enforcement can solve by itself. You know, they can't arrest themselves out of it. They can't solve it, they being law
True.
enforcement, by themselves.
Right.
We need the input from the community, and we are encouraging. Noble is a big proponent of that, encouraging community dialogue. We want people at the table. We want their input. We want their concerns. We want to share. And I think the best way, and what Noble has always talked about, is the best way to do that is to make sure that we are open, transparent,
Right.
that we are accountable, and most importantly, I keep harping on this on every one of our programs, that we are respectful. And so that respect...
And keeping the lines of communication open.
Right. Now,
all the
respect is
time.
a two-way street.
That's
You
correct.
know, I mean, law enforcement can't just demand respect without ensuring that they are providing
Giving
respect.
you have to give it to receive it.
Thank you for that call.
Thank you.
So, John, let's okay, I see we have another call.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so let's take one more call and then
Okay.
we'll go back to it.
All
Go ahead, caller.
Caller?
Yes,
Hello?
yes. My question is regarding the Chicago Police Department and the demographics. Obviously, sometimes, you know, you get into a cultural difference. Is there any push to get more African Americans on the job who come from the community, who can kind of speak the language, to kind of break down that barrier and just address some issues that are often community and generation related?
If
Yeah.
I may, Gene.
Yeah, thank you, caller.
First of all, thank you for the call.
Thank you.
As
Thank
you
you
all
guys
know,
so much.
we just recently had a police exam, an eligibility exam, which was pushed most vigorously in our minority communities, in black publications, in black radio stations, and the mayor was able to get a large number, a huge number of black applicants this time around to apply for the Chicago Police Department jobs. There is a push on to bring in more minorities in the department, and I think they're off to a decent start right now. How far it will be sustained down the line as the list gets shorter is anybody's guess. You can chime in on there anytime, Gene.
No, you know, we're right in the process now of hiring. We heard some comments not very long ago about the need to hire more police officers. Noble has a training program and has worked really diligently to prepare people even before the exam was presented, to give them practice the exam so they will be ready to take the exam. And now that they've taken the exam and passed the exam and are getting ready to be called, Noble has training where we are going out and taking them through the paces in terms of running the mile and how to do the sit-ups and the
Yes.
pull-ups and all of the things that are required for them to
Power test.
power test, so that they're prepared that once they do get called for it, that we won't lose those people. You know, we don't want to lose them to drug screening. We
Sure.
don't want to lose them to power test. So we're working with a whole group of individuals right now. We have a whole team that we're working with, and so we expect to improve upon that. But we will never be satisfied until the demographics of the
Police department
represent the
reflect the
demographic.
community.
Absolutely.
Yes, most definitely.
Okay.
And thank
so
you.
Thank you for the call. So, John, I know the next topic that we wanted to cover was that diversity of that hiring and that promotion, you know. And but I know another big topic that we want to bring people on and share with our viewers is the upcoming FOP contract negotiations.
Ooh, that's going to be a big one.
Yeah.
The negotiations are always rather contentious when they come up, and this one will probably be maybe even more so because you have some community groups that are actually demanding to be a part of the contract negotiations between the city and the FOP Lodge 7.
Yes, there's been a good bit of discussion with respect to the contract allowing this attitude of covering for officers, and you know, we've both been on the job for many years prior to us retiring, and we've been under those contracts, and we've seen the benefits of those contracts. And so I'm sure when we bring people in from the labor, from the collective bargaining unions, that they're going to have a different story about it. But I think there has to be some negotiating, and I think that there has to be a little bit more transparency there. But at the same time, I also know that the unions had to forego many numerical raises,
Right.
so that they could get some of these stronger benefits that they have. And now we need you know, the community is asking that we go backwards a little bit with it. But John, let's see if we have another caller
Yes.
before we move on. Is there a caller?
Caller, hello?
Yes, how you doing?
Hi,
Good.
how are you?
Good. One of the things that you mentioned, building relationships with the community. I know a lot of times we talk about trust and transparency, but another big component of that is how we interact with the with citizens. A lot of times they look at how they're being treated by a police officer, and all it takes is one incident to destroy that bond. What role do you feel that frontline supervisors play in, you know, monitoring their offices and also trying to help build that trust with the communities? Because outside of commanders and bosses, whatever, it's the frontline supervisors that's there responding to calls with the officers. What role do you think that they can step up and take just to ensure that citizens are being treated equitably and fairly, and just spoken to, you know, in a humane way?
Thank you for that call. Caller, that's an excellent question. I can't stress to you enough how much sergeants, the frontline supervisors, are to any law enforcement organization. They are the backbone of any law enforcement organization. They are the communication between the patrolman and the upper command, from the upper command down to the patrolman. And it is extremely important that the sergeants maintain professionalism among their troops. I can't stress that enough.
And let me just piggyback on that. I think the three most important, components of that is the training academy when they come into the training academy, the field training officer,
definitely.
and the frontline supervisors who are the sergeants on the street.
I agree.
And you are absolutely right. You know, we can't have people come in who first interaction in the historical inner city communities is that they have to start every conversation at a level 9, so there's nowhere else to
Right.
go but to 10.
DEFCON
And once you're at
5,
10,
yes.
and once you're at 10, then you got to put your hands on
Right.
people and so forth and so on. So you know, you were spot on with that caller. We have to do a better job at every step of the way, and I just want to.
And this plays into de-escalation techniques and training
That'll
as
be
well.
the training, but I just
Yes.
want to point out that the caller is absolutely right. This is not a job of Superintendent Eddie Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
This is a job of every single officer in the Chicago Police Department.
Agreed.
And so, John, you know, I just want to get ready to start talking about some of the people that we are going to be bringing in on our show. So let's just talk about the fact that we've spoken to Superintendent Eddie Johnson.
Yes, he's agreed to make himself and his executive staff available to us to appear on our TV program, which is great.
Yes, almost every member of the executive staff will plan on being here. We look forward to them being here and sharing with us, but not just Chicago Police. Who else are we?
We have Leo Schmitz, the director of the Illinois State Police. He's going to join us. Some might recall we've had some shootings in Chicago this summer involving Illinois State troopers with offenders who were trying to run over troopers with stolen cars. So they've had their hands full too this summer. We've had an increase in shootings on the Dan Ryan Expressway, on all of our expressways, but this summer has been a very violent one on our city's expressways.
Absolutely, and you know what I want to point out is we're going to have invites out to Sharon Fairley, who's at IPRA now, and maybe at COPA later. We're going to have invites out to Lori Lightfoot, who's the head of the police board and also the
Police
mayor's.
Accountability Task Force.
Absolutely. We've already got assurances from retired Superintendent Terry Hiller that he will be a part of the show as well. And we definitely plan on bringing in Dean Angelo from the FOP to be here as well. But we want not just those officials, we want community-based organizations, clergy, we want business leaders, we also want our
Board of Education.
Board of
officials.
Education, and we want
All
our
stakeholders, every stakeholder, not only in Chicago, but outside of Chicago area.
And we
wanna hear
won't
from
be
all
pushing away Black Lives Matter. We want
Right.
people, everybody's opinion is important. It is important that we are listening to everyone, and everyone
most
has a seat
definitely.
at the table.
and everybody has a voice.
And they have to have a voice, otherwise we're not going to be able to address the issues. You know, and the way that we keep you apprised of what's going on is that there are many different venues that we are involved in. For example, as our time is winding down, I'm going to be going.
The Congressional Black Caucus.
Right, I'll be going
to.
going to Washington D.C. as a invited guest of Congressman Bobby Rush to serve on a panel there. We have several other noble members who are on panels at the Congressional Black Caucus, and we even have our regional vice president, the former regional vice president, who is going to be going to the White House, John.
Right.
Chief Greg Baker.
Right. One of our noble members, Chief Greg Baker of South Holland. He's also going to be at the White House on September 28th to discuss President Obama's 21st Century Task Force on Policing. It's an ongoing discussion which has included many leaders such as Chuck Ramsey, a former deputy superintendent here in Chicago, who has also gone on to lead the Washington, D.C. Metro PD, and just recently retired from the Philadelphia Police Department. This year, Noble's going to have the latest info and discussions from federal, state, local level to share with our audience. Terry Hiller, another keynote speaker. He's going to be addressing the Chicago State University FBI Forum, addressing race and law enforcement.
Okay, our time is kind of winding down, so we want to remind you to please come out and support our annual dinner dance. This is a really big affair. We've talked about this in the past as to how it is.
It's coming up next month.
October 21st, you see it there on your screen. Proceeds from this event is what is used to provide scholarships for our young people. So we want you to come out and support that effort. You can get all this information on our website. You can also go to us on Facebook, on Twitter. But we're just pleased to be a part of this CAN TV, and we're pleased by the fact that we're going to be able to expand this and starting October 6th, have a weekly show.
Every Thursday.
Every Thursday at 7:30
7:30
p.m. We're going to be putting that information, putting the show forward, and we're going to have all of these topics, and we're going to have all of these people that we just talked about who are a part of this entire process.
We hope you'll join us for the upcoming season.
Absolutely.
It's going to be
you-
exciting.
I think you are going to be very, very pleased with what we're going to be able to present on our upcoming shows. So come out and join us at our
Dinner dance?
Dinner dance, and we thank you for joining us. I'm Eugene Williams for John Franklin. Noble TV thanks you for tuning in.
Thank you.